don't know how we're going to manage this, but we all join me in a pledge of allegiance to the
I can
flag.
see the corner of it.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, we'll open the meeting. The purpose of this meeting tonight is to discuss the budget, called the budget hearing. Are we ready to go into the budget hearing now? Okay. I'll declare the budget hearing open. In your possession, there should be three things that I want to talk about. One is a six-page budget, I will call it. Another one is about 6 pages of warrant articles, I'll call it. And a third one is a piece of paper which shows in the left column the page on the budget. Got one of these?
It's attached to the budget in the back.
Okay. To describe this piece of paper, which I think organizes everything, but you have to figure it out first, in the left column is the page where you will find the warrant article in the budget. In the second column is the actual warrant article. The third column is the appropriations that it's actually the same figure that you see in the warrant article. The third column that says other revenues, that is revenues that are documented in the particular warrant article that will actually reduce the amount of money that has to actually be raised. And the third column, the last column, is the amount of money that actually has to be raised in new taxes minus any other revenues that may come into the treasurer's office. Over to the right-hand side, you see two boxes, and there are two warrant articles here that are always the hardest to explain. One is warrant article 3, that's the top box, and the other one is warrant article 4, which is not as bad, that's the bottom box. Let's start with warrant article 3. This is the municipal budget, includes the Selectmen's Office, Town Clerk, Tax Collector. They presented their budget, and you will notice in that top box all the different pages where you will find numbers that add up to the warrant article. Some of the warrant articles include, or some of the budget includes one or more warrant articles, and so in the right-hand column where it says amount elsewhere, those are the amounts that we have to deduct because they're actually other warrant articles. That box on the right-hand side, down in the lower right-hand corner, shows the appropriation figure of $331,797, which is exactly equal to the amount that's in the warrant article. The warrant article says no other appropriations are included in warrant article 3. And that's why I had to take all of those out. You can't raise the same monies twice. Any questions on warrant article 3, the municipal and town clerk tax collector budget? Yes.
I just noticed that you have, the administrative clerk has gone down. Is that because of the bookkeeper will be doing some of the business work there?
Okay,
It went from 5,000 to 2,500.
She only works 3 hours a week.
Okay.
Okay.
And she's working less than she did previously?
Evidently, I wasn't involved in a big budget last year, but I understand that she works just 3 hours a week.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Warrant article 4. Warrant article 4 is in that lower box, and it shows you that the warrant article crosses pages 3 and 4. That's the 3 to 4 in the left-hand column in that box. So to find the warrant article and all the details, you'll have to look at the bottom of page 3 and on to page 4. In the course of all that, there's 3 other warrant articles that cannot be included in the main budget. The $16,000 figure, anybody follow me? The $16,000 figure is for a rate that's in another warrant article. The $135,000 figure is for the pavement of Red Oak Hill, which is in another warrant article. And the $40,000 is for a third person on the road crew, and that's in another warrant article. Those three figures cannot be included in warrant article 4, and so they are deducted. And if you will look after they are deducted, you get $316,300, which is the figure in the warrant article. Any question on that one? I'm going to go right fast if you don't stop me.
Well, I know, but
What?
I'm just trying to read these. I know I'm late, and that's my fault.
Okay, questions or what, need an explanation again?
I don't understand the increase in selectmen to double.
I didn't have anything to do with that, and that will be a warrant article we can discuss when we get to that particular warrant article if you will bear with us, okay?
I will.
Okay?
So just a point, we just wanna go down through the warrant articles.
Yes,
just
and any
to start
questions you
with?
have, or if you want to
Okay,
critique them or whatever. Because you'll be seeing all this again at the March meeting, but if we have an idea of what you want, perhaps, that's different from what we've got here, well, we can change it before the March meeting and make the March meeting go only 2 hours instead of 5.
And the creek don't rise.
The rest of the warrant articles are easy because they're all a single line item number. And going back to the left-hand side of this single sheet of paper, we're down to warrant article 5. That $1,000 is on page 2 of the budget.
Third of the way down on page 2.
I saw it before today.
4191, planning board.
Where is
I
it?
told you it would be painful.
Suppose when you come to me before, I got it found it on page 2.
Budget.
Ah, no wonder.
Thousands under
So you do see it about a third of the way down. That's the planning board. Anybody want to speak for the planning board? I can give you a little bit of information, but most of the work in the planning board is either legal or they have to send out notifications. And in order to send out those notifications, they have to have an authority to spend. There's a good chance that that authority to spend is a wash item because on the other side of the budget, the treasurer's side, you would see money coming in for the landowners that want to do the subdivision. They have to pay for it every abutter. Any questions? Yes.
Francis, is the planning board, as part of that money, is they're looking at doing the master plan this year?
That was not addressed, and so I do not know the answer to that question. Anybody
Okay.
here from the planning board?
Yes.
And are they doing a master plan?
No,
They're not?
not now.
Was the budget last year $2,000 as I read this? Now it's gonna be $1,000?
The budget was
No, it looks like
3,000
2009.
last year.
It's 3,000?
The budget was 3,000 for the planning board last year, we only spent $289.
Okay.
Did they have-
We dropped the budget to 1,000, it's basically for postage and things like that.
During this past year, 2019, the planning board did a revision of the regulations having to do with more than one dwelling on the same piece of property. Auxiliary dwellings they're called. And so they had some legal issues as far as making sure that they made the regulations correct, and so they passed it by a lawyer.
So, who's on the planning board?
Help me, Thomas.
John
And
Mead.
they-
Marina Colette? Is it?
I'm sorry?
My question would be, are the people on the planning board comfortable with a 2/3 reduction in their,
Yes, I believe so. We didn't see any need for it.
No, you didn't, but what about the planning board? Is there, who's from the
I-
John
planning
Mead
board?
is on the plan.
I'm on the planning board.
Oh, you are, okay, so there's no need for it, okay, I'm just
Correct.
asking.
I did call
That's a
and
huge
talk to the
reduction.
chairperson, I did call and talk with the chairperson, was gonna get back with me or a figure, and I mentioned $1,000 if I didn't hear back, and so this is back to what it was previously. This can be changed on the floor in March, if you need to.
Is that John Mead you talked to? Oh, Chris.
Now, I talked to Marie. Maria?
Was it John Mead that's in charge?
He had mentioned the master plan.
I had heard something about that too,
Yes,
so.
he had
I had
mentioned the
heard that.
master plan.
If I may, in answer to Arnie's question, John Mead is the secretary, Marie is the chairman of the planning
Okay,
board.
I'm just asking.
And
Okay, with me,
For the information of everyone here, we are looking for new members. It's hard to get people to serve. There's a couple of ideas, but we do need more people, even if they're ex officio or part-time. We need people.
Are we ready to move on to warrant article 6? Warrant article 6 shows up on page 3. At the very bottom almost. That's the fire department budget. It's the same as last year. They switched some numbers around, I think I was told, but it adds up to the same number. If you're looking at this particular piece of paper here, the second column right beside the 41,000 figure is $2,500. That's the amount of money that Jeff asked me to write into the warrant article to come out of the surplus fund balance that was left over last year's fire department. Warrant article 7. I don't know too much about this one. This is the payment on the truck.
It's our fourth payment out of a 5-year lease, and there's our exact expected payment for this year.
And that's on page 6 if you are looking. Long-term bond and interest. Warrant article 8. $1,000.
Yeah.
Warrant article 8. Conservation Commission, this is the amount of money that has been put into the Conservation Commission on a fairly regular basis, year after year. A couple of years ago, they were pretty active. In the past year, they haven't been very active. Comment? Yes.
The wording, the expenses related to the forester, I no longer have an active contract. The
Right.
town timber sale's done, and I will have there's nothing for me. So there is no expenses related to the forest.
And what, that's on page 5?
That's in the warrant article. I'm just reading that.
Oh,
The
okay.
actual warrant article, is the wording. We had raised it before to do
Yep.
the management plan, but the
Yep.
1,000 was what it used to be, which I'm just talking about the wording. There's nothing for me.
So basically, there's not gonna be a forest in next year.
There's nothing now, unless there was a wind event or something and you needed to hire me by the hour to go out and take a look and.
Yeah.
Should we leave that wording in there? Because in the absence of the wording, we're restricting ourselves as to what we can do with the money in the case of the event you're talking about.
You could say just related to the town forest or whatever, however you want, it doesn't matter to me, but,
How about the way it is?
okay, that's fine.
It's
This is-
easier.
Unless there's confusion at town meeting, I'm not under contract to actually
Right.
perform any work without being hired.
But this says we can use it for Conservation Commission and Town Forest. And
It
we may
doesn't,
not even use it at all.
May
doesn't
not use it
refer
at all.
to,
Any questions? Warrant Article 9. I don't know how I don't have a number after that.
it's on the very last page. It's the taxes are
Warrant Article 9 is on page 6 of the budget. And those numbers that you see there, to the best of my knowledge, are the exact same numbers we used last year. Prior to making this final, I asked as many people as I could what they thought about these numbers, and no one suggested a change.
Francis?
Yes.
At the last meeting, you talked about doing a capital reserve fund or something like that for the class six,
That's on a separate
emergency
warrant
line.
article?
That's separate, okay,
And
that's not
cannot-
in here?
No,
Okay,
right.
It's on the budget, it's halfway down, you'll see $5,000.
okay,
It
Yeah.
says emergency loan, or
Okay, I
just
missed-
emergency.
I didn't see that, thank you.
I've lost track of where I am. Number 10. Transfer station. Without looking, I'm going to tell you that's very, very close to the same as it was last year. The individuals making up these budgets tried to make a zero growth budget for the most part.
The only difference is last year we did not budget for the soil tests,
Okay?
and we found out subsequent, after the fact that we are required to do that in order to maintain our,
Okay.
licensing. So that's the exact difference between last year's budget and this year's
Okay.
budget.
We have to keep testing our old dump in spite of the fact that it has tested pretty perfect every single time we've tested it. Number 11 is the police department. $90,906 is only a small amount in excess of what it was last year. Any questions?
What's the difference between this year and last year, that it went down? Yeah,
The question was, what's the difference between this year and last year?
I don't have the difference right in front of me here, but it went from 89,009.
Maintenance.
Will the board give me permission to speak to my budget? I'll answer the question.
Sure.
You wanna know what the difference is?
Yeah, he said
monetarily?
it was quite a bit less than last year, so I was
Oh,
just
no,
curious why.
no, it's not less.
It's not
No,
less?
it's not less.
Oh, it's more?
Yeah,
Oh,
very, very close, I think I said.
oh, okay,
It's actually an increase of $904.
okay.
Two of them, which I have no control over, which is prosecutorial fees and dispatch fees. And then I did a $500 increase on my repairs for cruisers, because I've already spent almost all my budget this month for 2020,
Okay.
so I did an increase.
Warrant Article 12, $3,000 for the animal and pest control. Same as last year, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions?
Just, we have too many dogs running loose.
Number 13, ambulance service, $40,850. And during the last couple of years, when they've computed these rates, they have actually used a formula. The formula this current year was $43 per head, population-wise, 950 people in the town of Wentworth. And that's how that figure came about. Any questions? It's $4,000 more than last year, approximately.
Still a bargain.
Article 14, Parks and Recreation. I don't think I know what the things out there that intended.
Most of the expenses for mowing, it's, I don't know why we increased it, surprisingly. Oh, for the toilets. We had, last year, we only had one toilet, now we have two.
next item, 15, I've got a couple of questions here. Is anyone here representing the library?
Yep.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. On the warrant article, you see how it's read, $47,869 is your authorization to spend. I was told that $9,136 would come from cash on hand, or that,
No, we have, we currently, well, at the end of the year, as of December 31st, we had $7,086.20 cash on hand. The reason we ended up with so much extra cash on hand this year is because Linda managed to straighten out some of the trust fund interest. And so we got a windfall. And the reason that we've increased our budget so much is so that we can spend that windfall in this coming year on some very needed one-time items.
so that figure 9136 is correct.
It is correct.
And
Yeah,
the three
that
two-
is the $7,086 that we have for cash on hand or balance forward. And then we are estimating that we'll get $2,000 this year in interest from our trust funds,
Summer fund, right?
plumber fund, yep.
And the 30,
And then we have $100, which is, photocopier and book sale.
3282, that figure there is the surplus that you had left over this past year. It's rounded off to the nearest dollar, I think.
That's what Linda
Okay.
came up with, yep.
Any questions on that? Yeah, go ahead, Roman.
I just have a question of the trustees. Are you planning on, and forgive me if I'm not in the loop, are you planning on doing some repairs? Like I noticed when I walked around the outside of the library, you've got some real issues with
We do.
your roof.
And so, last year, we had someone in the fall come in who is a restoration specialist, because we've been having issues with the gutters and so forth. And when I contacted him about the gutters, we found out he could do a whole building evaluation, which he has performed, but we're waiting to get the report on. So $500 of our $47,000 budget will be to pay for that evaluation. If he does the work for us, that $500 will come off the bill the next year. We have money in our expendable trust account that if we have major repairs, that we can use the money.
Any other questions on the library budget as presented?
Can I just ask a
Yep,
follow-up question,
sure.
Mr. Chairman? When do you expect that report?
Well, he hoped by the middle of February. He's a very busy, very specialized young man.
Speaking of reports, if you haven't gotten your reports into Linda as far as individual departments for our town report, please do so as soon as you can. It'll help her keep organized the best.
Thank you for that information.
Article 16. In the course of 2019, as we were investigating things, we found $31,400 deposited in the treasurer's, I'll call it, general fund. In searching some more, we found that we had gotten $34,100 from the trustees of the trust fund, and we don't know what it was for. This is an attempt to put the exact same amount back into the trust fund where it came from. And that's what that figure is. It's a wash item because it's already in our general fund. It's just going back to where it belongs. Now, we did take out around $16,000, and we identified exactly what it was for. It was for some of the hydraulics control over in South Wentworth, and we wrote what it was for. We had 2 signatures. That $34,100 didn't have a reason, nor only 1 signature. So we need to do some safeguarding as far as making sure that we sign things and give a purpose and so on. It was fortunate we did not lose it. Any questions on that? It's a wash item, but it's cleaning up some housekeeping. During the course of 2019, I was asked to readdress the elderly exemptions. About 3 or 4 years ago, we changed the elderly exemptions, and at that particular time, I wasn't on the board, at that particular time, we elevated the numbers 25%. I don't think it helped anybody at all, to my knowledge. If it did, I'm not aware of it. This particular warrant article will elevate all the numbers by 40%. Let me explain some of the things in the warrant article. In order to qualify, you do have to qualify. You have to be 65 up to age 75, and you can't, as a single person, have an income in excess of $14,000. For a person 75 up to 80 years, you can't have an income more than $21,000. And for a person 80 or more, up to $28,000. These numbers were considerably less than that previously. In addition to these particular guidelines, you cannot have assets in excess of $63,000 you see down there. That does not include your home. Yes?
Francis, Andrew Louser. From when we spoke about this at the select board meeting where this came up a few weeks ago,
Yep.
About what sort of percentage did you increase the, I suppose the restrictions on the actual income?
Every single number which is the town can change was up 40%.
40%? Okay. Thank you.
Originally had it up 50%, but then I didn't know whether or not the effect on the town would be adverse or not, because that represents, well, you multiply $23 a thousand for your taxes by 15,000, and that's $300 and some odd dollars, $350 about. So that can affect if there's many people, and as I write these articles, you don't know how many elderly people will qualify. I thought when you upped it 25%, some people would qualify, but I know some that I thought should have, didn't. Yes.
When you were reading this, you said income for the age 65 to 75 could have income over 14,000. The way I'm reading this is those numbers in there are the exclusion on the property value. Because they mention income, then the net income down below is 23,000, and a married couple is 36,000.
Those are disqualifying figures. There's one for single and there's one for married.
Right, but the numbers up above, that's the, looks like it's the exemption for the property value, not
The
the
assessed
income.
value, to take off the 14,000.
Okay, yes, okay. Previously, the first figure was $10,000, so that's been up to $1,400, $14,000.
That's how much is excluded off the top of the property.
Comes
value.
right off the top of the assessed value. Compare that, by the way, to the next warrant article when we get to it. That's the veterans exemption. That doesn't come off the assessed value. That comes right off of the tax bill. Difference. One's a property assessment depreciation, if you will. The other one's a tax bill depreciation deduction. Any questions on the elderly exemption? Too high? In favor? Not in favor? Haven't had much feel for this, and I don't have the feel because I don't know how many will qualify. Not many. This can be readdressed at the March meeting. I'm hoping that what we decide on tonight will slide and not make a multi-hour meeting.
Do we have any idea how many might be getting any kind of credit?
No, I do not. That's one of the things why
Do they have to reapply every year?
they're supposed to, but
Yes,
let me,
they do.
So.
I think the answer is no. I think it's a permanent application.
That's not what they said at the senior center when they
No.
were advertising it last year.
Income might change.
Well,
I thought I saw somewhere where it was a permanent application.
Because that's credit is
I do know that one time ago, some years ago, we were told that we should re-examine all of our elderly exemptions and exemptions of any kind every so often anyway.
still
thought I saw permanent, but I, are we ready to move on to 18? That's optional veterans tax credit. Somebody can correct me on this, but I believe there are 3 different veteran tax credits. One you get by law, they can't deprive you of it, is $50. That's in the law. If you qualify as a veteran, you automatically will get, if you ask for it, a $50 tax exemption. That's $50 right off your tax bill.
Is that what they refer to as the standard?
Yes, I think so. I'm pretty sure. The next one, which is what this one is all about, is the optional veterans tax credit. That's optional if the town wants to do it. It was passed a couple years ago.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, it was effective January 1st, 2019. It was
Article 18? Article 19 I know was. Were they both
oh,
effective?
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Down at
Sorry.
the bottom of page 3,
Forgive me.
down at the bottom of page 3 of the warrant articles, it says, this article in similar form with incorrect wording of the law was adopted on March 17th, 2018 in the amount of $200. So that's the veterans exemption that has been going on in the last couple of years.
I apologize.
It can be anywhere from 51 to 500. Yes,
I can answer that question about the exemption.
yes, go ahead.
It says if the exemption becomes permanent, however, the town reserves the right to periodically request verification of residency, property, and ownership.
Thank you very much. Okay. Article 19. This is the 3rd type of veteran exemption. And in order to explain what these exemptions really are, better than I can explain them necessarily, I've included the entire law with a warrant article. So you can read it on your own, and this particular warrant article, number 19, if adopted, the credit granted by the town of Wentworth, you see that about 3/4 way down, will be $4,000, right off the tax bill.
That's for total disability.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions on these? Anybody have adverse opinions? Article 20, Historical Society. Last year you won't find that as a warrant article, and it comes and goes. In past years they have asked for $1,200 as a general, not every year, but as a general amount of money. And this year I was asked to put in $5,000 by the treasurer of the Historical Society because they are planning on, help me out, doing something to a new roof. That's that. So this, I would not expect another year that they'd ask for $5,000. They've only asked for what they need, and it takes about $1,000 a year to run things as heat and electricity. And that's what our $1,200 in the past is pretty much done. Right now they have, I think I was told about, get a number, $5,000 in the treasury.
Yeah, they do need, they need new roof, there's no question, it's not the roof.
So the roof would deplete everything they've got right now.
They can fix it for 5,000? That's enough.
I don't know.
Well, they have 5,000 in there,
I'd
so
have
they
to
can
ask
take
my
part of
roof.
that and put it with the 5,000. They think that would do it.
Oh, they take 10.
They had somebody
Well,
come over. and
7 or 8
look at the
maybe.
roof and sort of give them some guidance.
Oh, that sounds really cheap, fixing the roof.
Yeah, I think it should be a lot higher, but, I mean, I think it's gonna cost them a lot more.
They're happy with that number.
I don't know,
I spoke to Craig.
They requested that.
he's, who did you get the bid from?
Don't know that. This number again can be changed at the March meeting if he fit to do so. Article 21, emergency lanes. Back in early summer, we had a request to declare Hooper Hill Road which is down opposite the Foster Cemetery, to be declared a emergency lane. What that does, or let's, at the present, before it was declared an emergency lane, the selectmen cannot order any repair on a class 6 road, regardless. By declaring an emergency lane, in the case of an emergency, we now have the power to carry out some repairs. And the warrant article, not the warrant article, the RSA references having emergency lane capital reserve fund, because we're gonna have an emergency lane and no money to deal anything with it in, it ain't very practical. So this money, putting 5,000 into the, this article establishes the capital reserve, because right now it doesn't exist, and puts 5,000 into it. If there is reason to believe we need more later, we can do so, but I had 10,000 there originally, and at the meeting last week, we seem to have a concurrence that 5,000 would be enough at the present time, and where this budget is so huge in some respects, probably just as well. Keep in mind the fact every $1,000, every $100,000 requires $1 of your tax rate. That's not
No.
quite true.
So Francis, what is the definition of the emergency lane? What would make a roadway, like say a class 6 road, all but we're gonna consider it an emergency lane?
There it is.
Yeah, so what is an emergency?
He's looking for definition.
Yeah, definition, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's a
20
road,
ways.
it's a class 6 road that
Yep.
the town has decided,
Yep.
which they already have at a special meeting last year, to put some seasonal maintenance to, for the purpose of emergency. So like was
I.e. if there was,
25 years ago.
so if you had a
Bridge out.
bridge
Yeah.
out, or you
The
had,
town used it as an emergency lane in the
Right.
past,
Yep.
and it's fallen, you know, they put a bunch of money in,
yep,
it's in
and then it's
disrepair
kinda
a little
like
bit,
disrepair, got it.
and it still serves the town
Okay,
for that
that
purpose.
sounds good.
How many houses are on that road?
Oh, how many houses? 5?
Bill Melanson, myself, camper that's there full-time, he's not there full-time, but it's a permanent building. And then that's actually it on just that stretch.
Let's not forget though, that the Fair Mountain Road
Bridge goes out.
Right.
is part of that emergency lane,
Right.
because the bridge that's
And
over
Mike
on the
Lane.
Fair Mountain Road is one that we had problems with in the past.
So
So that washed out, and we had to open Hooper Hill to get those people out.
To get out. And the snowmobile trail and incidents,
So
or
you don't
whatever.
use their
whatever.
Mountain Road either, it's not a town road.
Fair Mountain Road is a
Yes.
town road. That's one of the reasons that we looked at that as being an emergency
Right,
lane.
but they used to do Hooper Hill, right? They used to plow
No.
Hooper Hill, never?
Only that 1 year,
They
right?
did, when they declared it an emergency lane, because
Okay.
the bridge was.
I thought they
Because
had
the
done
bridge
it
went out.
before.
Yes,
Okay.
and then the town, at town meeting voted to re-discontinue.
Keep in mind at the time they maintained that road, which cost, I think, something like $6,000 in gravel, that was an illegal act on the part of the selectmen at that time, because the RSA specifically says that no town taxpayers' money would be used on a class 6 road. I would have done the same thing, but they did, I would open it because it was an emergency. But this now makes it legal.
How many class 6 lanes do we have?
Oh, how many class 6 roads?
A lot.
Quite a few.
Nobody knows.
This is the
Yeah.
only one that is considered an emergency lane right now, and notice that the last line of this warrant article says, in the case that others are declared emergency lanes, this emergency lane fund can be used for those as well.
So you can authorize it in the future.
Yeah, it's usually at a special meeting.
What would be the cost of making it a town road? I mean, there's houses on it, do you need it,
It would be a lot. It's a
The way- I
single
don't even know
lane
where it
road,
is.
and to make it into a regular town road would be a lot of money. So this is the best way to have, well, you can keep it passable for the fire department, police department, but not make it a problem.
We can choose to
But
do
they don't
nothing, or we
follow.
can choose to make it passable.
Well, it'd be nice if they followed it.
So that's the
I
reason.
allow it.
Oh,
Yes,
Just looking at the article itself, should this be 2 articles, one to establish the fund and then one to put the money into it?
no, it's not necessary.
Not
We've done it in the past.
Okay.
Good question. Moving on to article number 22, landfill closure. Some of you know the adverse happenstances that went on in town during the last year, and the money got out of that account. And to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing in there. This warrant article says to see if the town will vote to discontinue the landfill closure capital reserve fund, the principal and accumulated interest to actual date of discontinuance to be transferred to the town's general fund. That's if any is in there. We have been given a figure of how much is being given back to the town, and right now I asked the lawyer up in Woodsville when she came to one of the meetings, where does that money go? Does it go back into the capital reserve fund from which it came, or does it go into the town's general fund? To the best of my knowledge, it's right now in the general fund, right? So that must be where it goes. So basically, there's nothing in the capital reserve fund to take out, right?
$101.
Okay, so we're gonna take out that amount of money, and it's all going to go into the general fund. Now, follow up that. If this warrant article doesn't pass, we can't do the next one. The next one says we're gonna take $84,394.65 and put it into the Bridge Capital Reserve Fund established in 2006. That ETF means it's an extendable trust fund. The selectmen can spend that amount of money. And since we're going to be doing bridges this coming year, Frescon Bridge and Crossroad Bridge, we need some money to be able to have our cash flow. The cost of those bridges may not be hideous to the town, but we have to pay the bill and then look for reimbursement. So that's where the cash flow is going to be tough to deal with. And ordinarily, warrant articles don't have cents on the end of them. It's a kind of a, you just don't put them there. The reason for the 65 cents on the end of this is because it's the exact money we're getting from the insurance company, and this shows a traceable amount of money if anybody wanted to do so in the future. Article 24, Highway Department equipment purchase. $16,542 is the cost of a York rake and a broom that are interchangeable. Paul, I want a correction here. You see that 8,543?
Yep.
Should it be 42 or don't you care?
Well, I mean, it's $1 off, I already saw that.
I didn't see it until the day when the other figure.
It should match, I saw that earlier, I was gonna mention it.
Consequently, that's coming out of the equipment fund, and $7,999. That 8,000 has got to change.
This should be 8542.
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
What do you want it to be? Want to change it to 8542 or
Yeah,
change
8542.
8542? I think I may have copied that wrong in the process and just picked it up. So 8542, which makes it an even number left over, is going to come from the equipment capital reserve, and $8,000 will be coming from the taxation.
Paul, how long has it been since we had one of these
One what?
rakes and
Well,
brooms and?
the town really doesn't have a broom that is usable. We've been renting one for like the last 3 years. 4 years ago, the town hired a street sweeper that was $4,600 to sweep the roads. We don't have a broom that actually sweeps the roads. We have one that goes on the front of the backhoe that you'd use in the town common area. It only holds 1/8 of a cubic yard. That's all you can pick up at a time. It would take a month and a half to sweep that down there. So we don't really have a broom. There's one down there that's 40 years old
We've done it in the past.
that is completely,
I have never seen my road swept.
I swept it last year, several times.
It's done. Your road's a dirt road.
No.
Wow.
So, the town really doesn't have a broom that's capable of sweeping the roads unless we rent one. Like, I did last year, and it was $3,600 last year. $3,200, I think, to rent it.
Moving on to
Rent it for a week.
any more questions on 24? Moving on to 25, Red Oak Hill paving. I'm gonna tell you that the tax bills next year, or actually 2020, this year, are gonna be hideous if we don't do something. I'm gonna make a suggestion here, it's different from what's in your warrant article, but I wanna take all the money except for $1 out of the capital reserve. Yes, it will make we got $207,000 in that capital reserve. So we can cover the $135,000 and still have over $100,000 left over. And that will make the actual appropriation $90,000 less in this budget, and that represents about $1 a thousand. $1 a thousand.
I thought we only had like $150,000 when you and I checked.
Help me.
Because we were gonna leave ourselves with
27,
like
right?
$8,000 or something.
Yes, it's 207, that's
207.
before we put money in this. You may be thinking of, highway equipment projects.
Now, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown here. The fund we're talking about here is an expendable trust fund. The selectmen do not have to ask the town to spend the money in an expendable trust fund. But I would hate to think that a board would spend $135,000 without warning the town pretty good about, hey, we're gonna do this. So I would like that warrant article.
Francis,
And we can't make any changes right here and now, but
is that on the, in the?
yes,
Yeah,
it's
where will I
on
find that?
page, what warrant article we doing, 25? It's on page, page 5, I've been told, okay?
Page 5 of the warrant article,
Of the warrant
page
article.
6 of the budget.
It's in the,
Oh,
highway
okay, I guess my
tax-
question is, where would I find numbers where the expendable funds are at?
That's from the trustees of the
You
trust
mean the
fund. so that's-
trustees?
Is that where Francis is talking about taking?
I haven't brought that report with me.
Okay.
You'll see it at the meeting.
So the money isn't in this budget, though.
No, the money is, on page 4 of Paul's budget. 3/4 of the way through his budget, $135,121.
Yep.
I'd like to see all the money except $1 come out of the, out of the road paving capital reserve fund. And the reason for the $1 is just because it's a warrant article, and you don't have a warrant article if you're just gonna do it yourself anyway.
So will there be any money left for next year then if another road needs to be paved?
100,000.
I did have a copy. That's what the trust.
Yeah, I do.
all money now.
Well, we're gonna be putting some into that budget.
You can have it.
I'm wondering if you're using all that money to pave one road in next year, are you going to have any money left to pave another road?
135 from 207 leaves 72,000, and we're putting some money in on warrant article, I think it's 9.
So Francis,
Yes.
if I could go back again, I'm being a little dense tonight. So what you're recommending is taking the money out of the, that's in the trustees. I'm looking at the trustees of the trust funds reports. You're talking about taking money out of these, all these different,
Not all the different ones, just the one that says paving.
oh,
By the way, Francis, that isn't an expendable
right there,
trust.
okay.
Francis?
That's not an expendable trust. The bridges are. Paving is a capital reserve.
The paving requires a motion, okay, to take any money out of that. I thought that was, what did I think that?
Because the bridges.
Okay, road paving capital reserve fund requires your permission anyway, so I spoke wrong. It requires your permission to take anything out of that fund.
So we can say at the meeting then is that I like to have it so that we can pay part of it, and then so the next year we have money left over so we can do a road again.
All I'm saying is that would save $90,000 of appropriations in 2020.
But if we have to do a road again next year, we're going to have to raise the tax rate. That's my point.
Well, wanna take
Are
the
you-
punch for it all now?
Are you cutting the balance down to?
I'm not cutting anything,
No,
I'm
but
just
you're
changing where the
taking-
money comes from.
You're taking, yeah, but you have $200 and something dollars, you're gonna take $135,000 out, that's gonna leave you with part of a road for the next year if something needs
But,
to be done.
as I'm saying, on warrant article 9,
The road paving,
road paving, you're putting 50,000 more.
Okay, okay.
So Francis, could I ask the road agent a question?
Yes.
Paul, what, looking, say like a 5-year plan, what's the next road, paved road here in town that would have to be, is probably next up?
Probably Turner Road, from 25 up to,
Up to
right,
Bucks?
yeah, right to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
It's in really bad shape. And as much as I hate to tell the town, but, East Side Road is in some really, really bad shape, and it just got
Well,
built
that's
years
brutal
ago.
out there,
It's
yeah.
It was not, I mean, the town's gonna drop over backward when they have to pave that again in a few years.
That's
It's in
why,
bad shape.
They
that's
never
why I'm
did
thinking
any
we could
physical
have,
maintenance of that road before they put the tower on top of it.
I
They
don't mean
beautified it,
to
but
say,
didn't do anything
You know,
good.
trying to figure out, it's.
that's why I'm,
that
that's
was
my
the spend,
feeling
that's
is
the
to
bottom
keep
line.
putting money into the roads to build it up so that we are not.
My suggestion would be like when you get to a point, like maybe Turner Road or like you get on the East Side Road, because the town's gonna have to do a half a mile a year. You're not gonna be able to do the whole road. Because to do it the right way, it's gonna cost, well, you see Red Oak Hill, to do it the right way, it's not even 3/4 of a mile. It's gonna be almost $40,000 or $35,000.
So what is your feeling about taking all out of the capital reserve except for $1? Or take it all out of the capital reserve since we need your permission anyway.
Even if you took it all out, except it all, we'd have 122 left in it. If Article 9 passes.
And that would do another road similar
That
to
would
Red
do
Oak
a
Hill.
half a mile road.
And
I'm
then
just trying to
keep
get the
putting money
damn
into it
tax
each
rate.
year.
Right
Yeah.
now, it's going up $1 and $1.72.
What would that, what that approximately?
Well, right now it's 23 something, so $1.70 more would be about $25 a thousand.
But it looks like some of the stuff, if, I'm just painting with a very broad brush, it looks like some of the stuff has just been kicked down the road over the last several years, and it's time to pay the piper here somehow. I mean, not, I don't wanna pay taxes either, but, you know, at some point, we gotta say, we gotta get caught up.
Here's my answer.
I mean, I live on Atwell Hill, and that road was done a couple, 3 years ago. And it's already, you know, starting to show cracks and heaves in it, and talking to people, they didn't, you know, they should have had so many inches of asphalt in that road, they didn't do it. So now, you're looking at having to do that road again, instead of doing it right the first time. That just,
It
my
did-
opinion for what it's worth.
The deplorable conditions that we're in did not happen in 1 year, and it will not, you know.
Well, that's what I mean, Francis, everything's been kicked down the road over the last, yeah, we'll get it next year.
What
we'll
I'm
get it
saying is
next
it'll take
year.
more than 1 year to correct it. Joe.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to prevent. I wanted to kind of put something towards roads each year so that we're not combined.
We're putting $50,000 in, and based on this here, every 3 years, we could do a road. And that's without even talking about what we've already got in there.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
One of the concerns I have, everybody in this room is under 35, okay? So there's a big population in our town. There's a big population in our town, and those folks aren't here, that are older, they're on a fixed income, and I'm trying, part of my job, I feel, is to try and make it so that they can continue to live in the town of Wentworth. If the taxes keep going up and up, I know we have certain obligations, okay? But at the same time, we need to consider everybody in town that's here. And, you know, it's somebody's mother or somebody's grandmother or something. So that's what's concerning me. I mean, yeah, there's a great need, unless there's some angel out there that wants to come and put in a big donation to pave the roads, that, you know, that's fine. And we would certainly be very thankful for that. But again, I'm just concerned about, you know, all those various folks out there. They can't even come to a meeting. And that's why I'm so tickled pink to see what Mr. Lasser and Donna have put in for a warrant article to publicize and put our meetings out so that the public can see it. And then they can write letters and they can chastise the members of the select board, but it'll be another segment of the population. And that's what I'm hoping to hear from. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to go on.
I'm 100%, in case you have any doubts at all, I'm 100% in favor of paving Rideau Hill.
It also is paving the
Yep.
400-foot section in between King Lumber too, don't forget that.
All I'm concerned about is raising taxes too darn much in 1 year. And therefore, by taking it out of the capital reserve, it would save a little bit of the shock. $2, almost $2 raising. I'm not even talking about what the county's gonna increase or what the schools are gonna increase or anything else. I'm just telling you right here in this budget, I've got $1, I can't find it now, $1.72 somewhere.
So I guess, Francis, maybe the question is, that something you ought to address at town meeting and present it to the townspeople there that day? And say, this is my thoughts.
Now, here's the
And-
question, I do not know, Owen, can we change a capital reserve reduction at the floor?
You see, I have no idea.
I don't-
That's something you have to, the
I think we
moderator
can.
will probably know.
I'd have to look it up.
The big problem is the elderly people in town who can't afford these raises, their income is not going up, they aren't gonna be at the meeting to complain. It has to be done by conscious, thinking, generous people in town.
Oh, I don't wanna see the tax rate go up either, but I
But
just
the
wanna make
people
sure
who
that
are
there's money
most
in
affected
time
are not here,
to
they
protect
will not be
the
at
vote.
town meeting.
Andrew,
I don't know. I mean, I know there's other ways to. This is going to be like probably more long term, and I'm not sure anyone would like it. But I mean, to try to bring more business into town, that would. I mean, that would increase the amount of, taxation that ultimately happens without actually, pushing the tax rate up. I mean, the more people, the more businesses you have, I mean, you're ultimately going to be receiving more taxes. So if there's so many things that need to get done that aren't getting done and they keep getting pushed off, I mean, how do you really work on that?
How much commercial space is available in Wentworth?
All of it.
Yeah?
There's no zoning.
There's no.
so you want us, let's say, let's change the warrant article on the floor if they wanna do that?
No trespassing zones.
I mean, just mention this at the town meeting, that's fine.
Do you think it's a sound move?
Yeah, I agree.
I do.
As long as
So take it all out of the capital reserve?
Yeah.
Because you still
I
have
just
seven.
wanted to make sure there was money
Why
enough
don't
to
we
do.
make that decision right here now? You still wanna, what do you, do it either way.
I
This
like the
meeting,
article as written.
what?
I like it as written,
You like it as written?
as you recommended.
Oh.
You mean,
As you're
Just
discussing
take it
it.
out of capital reserve, yes.
So take
oh,
all of
that,
it right
it's
out of
not
the capital
written
reserve.
that way
I
right
don't
now.
care.
Well, however he mentioned it, he's been arguing, that's,
Take it all right out?
he's been persuasive.
So we'll take that one,
That's a good decision.
Take it all out of the capital reserve.
Yes. And you've already demonstrated that there's money left, there's money being put back into it. Why
You're putting $50,000 in the warrant article 9. You got 72, that makes 122. That's almost what Red Oak Hill costs. Another year, you'd be putting in 50 more, I assume. Change it to all of it to come out of the capital reserve.
Good idea.
I'm going to ask for
Good
a
idea.
show of hands, if I may. Not that this makes any difference as far as our vote is concerned, but a show of hands would give us more of a confirmation of what your wishes are here. We have to decide on the basis of the people in town as well. And try to, all right, show of hands, how many want to put it all out of the capital reserve? Excuse me. Sorry. When we come out of this hearing, that'll be one of the changes we'll make. We're just getting a hearing, we're listening to you, that's what the hearing is all about. when we come out, we'll make decisions on what changes we will accept, and when that change is made, there can be no more changes until the floor of the March meeting. I'm on to the next one. Hemi Baker Access Media. Linda, one thing that's got to be here, I think, is since this wasn't a petition, was it? No, we agreed to do this at the meeting. They were going to put a petition in. This is based on $30 an hour for a minimum of 3 hours. They won't come for more, less than 2, but for 3 hours. That's $90 every week times 52, and then the membership fee is $250. So I believe that totals $49.30.
It doesn't say minimum of 3 hours on here.
When they sent us the figures.
Well, yeah. Do you mind if I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
The whole with Penny Baker TV, there was a minimum of 2 hours that you have to spend on each specific occasion that they came out. No matter if it was an hour, or less than 2 hours, you'd be charged 2 hours at least. The amount that we ultimately came to is based off of 3 hours, because the meetings have been going between 2 and 3 hours. There was no point of really saying a minimum of 2 hours, I think, because you ultimately have to appropriate the total amount of funds that it could.
There's a good likelihood you wouldn't see the end of the meeting that way.
So, yeah.
So $49.30 was a agreement on the part of the selectmen to include in the budget. It originally was coming in by petition, but they agreed to let us write it for the whole amount for 3 hours. We did.
Francis,
I got the lady over here first.
is this gonna be anywhere other than on the cable channel, because a lot of people in town do not have cable?
Andrew, can I direct that
Yeah.
to you?
So,
It's on YouTube, too.
so what I spoke to Penny Baker TV about, and in all honesty, just to let you know why I even started to come up with this with Donna, was the fact that I was planning on running for selectman, and I am. So if I am doing that, there's no way I can do the video at the same time. However, I mean, if things change, then this could ultimately change the day of, I believe, because we have to vote in the selectmen, obviously, previous to that. But shoot, I lost my train of thought.
It's on YouTube.
Sorry, yeah, they put it on their cable television channel. They put it on YouTube, and even if I were to do the videos, they'd still charge us a $250 fee per year, at the very minimum, and I could get them the videos, but they are on both ultimately. Now it won't be instantly on TV if they're able to live stream it. It won't be live stream on TV. It'll be live stream online, and then they'll put it on cable TV later.
This is for 52 weeks. Some weeks we don't meet. So that could cut it back. Any money left over in this particular warrant article would end up going into the surplus fund balance at the end of the year. And we could use it sort of like the fire department has used some of their money that was left over to reduce the appropriations the following year. So that money is not gone just because we don't feel that we have to spend it just because it's there.
Can I just, does this young lady, did that answer your question?
Yeah, when he said it's gonna be on YouTube.
I saw another
Okay,
question.
so that, see, I don't know much about that stuff, so.
I think I
it's
saw
okay.
a question here at the same time I called on that lady.
No, it was me, and I had the same question.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'll make one other comment. Currently, what I've been doing at the last, quite a few select board meetings, I've been live streaming it online on YouTube, and you can go back and watch the previous meetings as well. So if anybody wants to know more about that, feel free to come to me at the end of the meeting. What I hope to do as well is to talk to Linda and the select board and maybe get their permission at some point to add links to the town website so people can access it that way as well.
Great, that's a good idea.
So I mean, right now, unless you have Facebook and you're on the Wentworth bulletin board, I don't think anybody knows about it, and I doubt most people here probably have Facebook because it's a
I think
nuisance,
it's good to
but.
put it on the town website, because the bulletin board is nothing but a Facebook page.
Well,
It
that's
has more-
exactly what I'm
It
saying.
has more
That-
validity being
yeah.
on the official
Ab-
town website.
Absolutely agreed.
Okay, we're on Article 27. That was 20. No, I got it wrong here. Warrant Article 27, received by petition. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 for a third full-time hired person to be expended by the Highway Department for such purposes deemed necessary by the road agent.
Yes, as I thought, at one time they were talking about half of the year, not having someone 12 months.
Talked about a lot of things in the last year.
Well, how did it get to be 12
This
months?
is by petition.
This is by petition.
This came to us.
Oh,
When we get a petition signed by the appropriate number of people in town who are residents and vote on the voting list, we have no choice but what to put it on the warrant list.
That's why we have town meeting. Don't like it, vote it down.
Is that gonna cover one person? Cause that doesn't seem like enough money to pay a fair wage.
Well, keep in mind the fact that, let's just take some numbers that we can do in our head. $20 an hour, they don't get $20 an hour, but let's take $20 an hour. 40 hours a week, that's $800 a week. Multiply it by the number of weeks left in the year,
Cause this wouldn't take effect until mid-March,
Correct.
right?
or end of March, so, yeah.
But is that gonna cover?
Another thing is
benefits?
in here, and I don't see it anywhere, there is an eligibility for insurance, which is another,
Costs a lot more than $40,000.
yeah,
I
they're talking
have
about the
that in
loaded
my
salary.
budget.
She has it in her
The
budget.
loaded salary.
It's in her budget.
Vacation, sick days.
This is, 40,000 is for salary.
Yes,
Correct.
we've had,
So, could you tell us what the expense is gonna be for insurance, pension, workman's comp? What's,
that I don't have. You have that?
I mean, that's sizable. That isn't just a $5 item.
I'm
That's
gonna
a
tell you
that's
that
a completely
insurance for one
different.
person between $6,000 and $8,000, I can put on that.
That has to be considered though.
Oh yeah,
Has to be
definitely. It was
considered.
spoken about at a select board.
About $1,000 a month, she says.
We put $8,000 in the budget to cover benefits for the rest of the year. If this person came on board, he wouldn't even be eligible for, after 90 days of hire, to get any benefits. So we used, $8,000 to include if he chose insurance, payroll taxes, and any other kinds of taxes.
Okay.
She meant he or she.
Yes,
Yeah. To clarify for people, you know, it's- I don't know if you can do it now, you should also put in the additional cost.
You
You know,
can't
so we
change
see
the
what the
can't change
total,
the warrant
what the
article.
total cost would be.
But Judge,
We
that
cannot change the
means
warrant
town
article because it
meeting,
was
we have
presented
to
to
ask
us.
the town meeting what the
Should
loaded
explain that,
salary
is
is.
it, right, what you getting at?
Yeah.
Should be explained.
This, what is it, the whole package should be explained, you know, whether it's somewhere else in the budget or not. These
It
people
is
know.
no place else in the budget except on page,
Remember that?
well, the benefits are under Article 3.
Bring it back. Great.
I'm not speaking against it, I just wanna know how, what the total cost is gonna be. That's all.
Right.
You wanna make
we
it-
were hit with
But
it
it's already in the
last
budget.
week,
It's already in the budget.
and we didn't have any choice. February 4th was the last date that you could submit a warrant article by petition. We had to put it in, and there it is without, I'll call it, all the explanations you might wish for, and I don't have any better explanation, unfortunately.
At the town meeting, if somebody stands up and says, what additional costs, will that information be readily available?
That time,
or
all
something?
heck, my
What I
paperwork
told
breaks
you,
loose.
it's $8,000, I
Well-
put additional.
I'm just saying, will it be available at the town meeting?
It'll be available as it is right now.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking,
Oh.
so people will know, that's all.
Oh, yeah,
so
it's
people
in the
know.
budget.
Okay.
If this warrant article gets shot down, there is no third person. Now, you can modify the figures. Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Well, we could use the third person to shovel the library, shovel the town offices, and when it snows a lot, you probably need another third person. But you can't hire somebody for half a year.
Because it seems to me when we've had 3 people on the highway crew before, they were pretty busy in the summer months with all the ditching we got around. We had ditches, culverts, we had culverts that hadn't been cleaned in years. Till we got that third person. You go to some of these intersections and all the brush and trees hanging out. I mean, this, to me,
There's a lot to
there's
do.
a lot of work,
In
there's
the
a lot
summer,
of
the two man
maintenance.
should be cut down to.
And equipment maintenance, yeah, exactly. And
And-
Francis, you had mentioned, you got over 50 some odd
Okay, I'm
pounds of
sorry,
road.
I cut you off, and I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's okay.
Say what you said again.
When we had a third person on the highway crew, there was more than enough work. I mean, and you've been up on that wall hill, Francis, some of those culverts were crushed, hard crushed, and, ditching that's gotta be done. I mean, we've had some heavy rains up there, the water's not in the ditch, it's coming down the middle of the road because the ditches are full. I mean, there's a lot,
I think the
there's a
road
lot of
agent-
work for 3 people.
I
is
think
what
the
I'm
road
saying.
agent would tell you that they're not crowned, and that's why the water goes right down the,
Yep, exactly.
the brook in the middle
Yes,
of the road.
so as far as I'm concerned, there's enough work for 3 people in this crew.
Andrew.
Really is.
I wanted to ask the road agent's opinion on how many hours he's typically working on a week and how much usage you could get out of a full-time employee.
On, like, regular in the summer?
Well, I mean, like this time of year during the summer. I mean, like what sort of hours you typically working? I mean, for what I understand, you've been working a lot of overtime. Well, I'm sorry. I know your salary. I know your salary.
I've been putting in close to 60, except for last week. I think I had my lowest week ever here. I think I put in 37 hours.
And when you run 3 trucks in the winter, you're probably getting around to the roads the first time a lot quicker.
I've had plenty of complaints the last 4 days. How's that? But I'm not very happy about it.
Well,
Can't
it's
do
not
anything
your
about it.
fault.
Can't do anything about it.
There's nothing you can do about it.
I guess I wanted to further press the issue that really needs to happen. I think.
The particular warrant article, complete with wording, sorry, here, up front here.
Yep.
The warrant article, complete with wording, is not something to be changed by your board because of the RSAs that allow for warrant articles to be included in the warrant by a proper petition. Same thing with the next one, the last warrant article, compensation for the selectmen. If you look in the budget as it was presented in warrant article 3, there was no salary given in that warrant article or intended in that warrant article for selectmen. It was taken out entirely. And this warrant article would raise and appropriate $12,500 for the selectmen, and it tells you how it would be disseminated.
Palmer, I have a question. I was ridiculed last selectmen's meeting because I thought that you guys volunteered. And now I have an issue with doubling the salary. Is that, don't say anything till March?
I hasten to point out that is by petition.
Okay,
The
so
select
wait
board
till
had nothing
March.
to do with that.
So wait till March.
You'll have to.
I submitted that warrant article. All of them were against it, so they're not trying to give themselves a raise.
No, I was just clarifying, yeah, I was just clarifying with Palmer to speak now and wait till March.
Right, get them in it.
I saw Andrew first.
Yeah, I actually wanted to, because I know Jordan and Donna came up with this. If Jordan could clarify why you were actually upping the prices.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring some figures to
Where's the,
town meeting, because I'm sure it'll be discussed. I've contacted about 15 different towns in this area, just trying to get a feel for all that. And in the warrant article, it says to attract and retain good candidates and keep good people that have been here and keep continuity on the board. We've had a lot of trouble with continuity at a lot of positions, including the board, and that is the goal of this. Some towns, if you look at the spectrum and the information that I have, Wentworth is on the very lowest end of what the selectmen get paid around here. They're not the lowest, but it's close. And some of them, even like Plymouth, only pays 2,000, but they have 5 members and a much bigger staff at the town office. So a lot of these towns that don't pay as much, they have more people at the town office doing that type of work, whereas more falls on to these other towns, like Wentworth. You know, like Thornton pays 4,300, you know, so there's a plus or minus, but that's the reasoning.
That was a cramp.
Question?
Go ahead, I didn't see the hand. Yes,
What are you getting now for a salary?
22.
I'm asking now. What are you getting for a salary?
what am I getting?
Yeah.
2,200, I think it's 1/3 of
Okay.
66.
Warren pays 1,600. Rumney pays 1,600. So, I guess if you go around, you can find higher. But my point is, if you want to run to fill the seat of a selectman's chair, you do it out of your public commitment to public service. It's a stipend that you get. It's to cover maybe any incidental expenses that you accrue. It isn't meant to get rich, and we have 900 people in town. And I don't know how many of them are registered voters, but offering $4,500, is that gonna make people come out of the woods to run for
I
office?
saw Sharon's
I don't
hand
think so.
first.
Well, I'm just saying, it won't, make continuity any better, but they do put in a lot of time and a lot of work.
And also, it will help get younger, no offense,
I'm insulted.
younger
Might
people.
help, it might help.
Might help
get
younger people get on the board, which it's really, it's what we need. We need the youth. We keep getting people who are, you know, have extra time and are willing to put the time in, but we need younger people with their ideas, with their input for the town.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Now that I'm older, no, we don't.
And I'd like to.
I have a person with the floor, and I insist on it.
I'd like to add to Donna's thing there, in that, you know, right now we have selectmen that are retired, and that's great.
No,
So
one of them is not
one
retired.
of them is not
I'm not
retired.
retired.
Oh, sorry. But a younger person just starting off, working on their own or working for someone else, to take time away from their job, from their income, to come and do this. They might have to pay childcare. They might, I mean, there's a whole lot more going on there. And it's not that big of an amount, but it might be just enough that makes it so that younger person who can't take time away from work because that kills their family budget, it could bring that person up to the table at that point.
I'm going to, I think I'm ready to close the hearing if we don't have any choice on these last 2 warrant articles, so the discussion is something you're gonna have to debate over between now and March. The last item I didn't even talk about because it's gonna bring up other things. Anything you bring up after the last warrant article is non-binding, but can give the selectmen a feel for what you want, if you have any particular interest that you want to give out. Yes, go ahead.
Under that, I would just like at some point, and I don't know, maybe it's been looked at, but on your town website, under your highway department, is a report that was done quite a few years ago on what it would take to bring our roads up, and it gave an 8-year plan. I don't know if we've ever implemented any part of that, but I would think at some point we need to go back and look at it and maybe get it back into a circulation. Because they had an 8-year plan and we paid for it.
That was UNH.
I don't think we paid for that one.
They did it voluntarily?
I think it was part of their school project or something along
No,
those
we
lines.
paid them.
We did? Okay, I'll stand
So
by.
I read through it was done in 2013, and I read through it. And 2021 would have been the last year of the construction work and whatnot. But I can tell you probably the reason that nothing was done about it is because there was a price tag put on all the construction for like $1.6 million. And that was back in 2013.
But it had,
And that was over an 8-year
On
time
on
period.
average, around 80,000 every year to do each
It was about
cycle.
$200,000 each year.
I thought it was 80,000 to do the worst roads first.
Yeah, it's
I
just
got the
like
whole
Okay, we're
80,000.
gonna call on Jeff.
I just, a question to the road agent, because you've looked at that, Paul, does that seem to fit the criteria that we're going to need?
Probably we're gonna need more than that now, honestly. Yeah. There's,
So it is good goals to follow.
yeah, for sure. Yep.
That particular plan, if I'm not mistaken, shows you how much you spend, where you're gonna spend it and so on, year after year after year until the job is completed. It was hideous, I thought, but that's what needs to be done when you don't have the superstructure. I was gonna go back into the regular meeting first.
Can I ask another question on that same topic? Would, or does the master plan address some of that as well? And would that help us?
I don't think it addresses that, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't think it addresses that particular, but it gives guidelines for the entire town, of which the roads and things that we do would sort of look at that and say, how does this fit in with the master plan?
Okay.
Paul, a question?
I was gonna speak to, the warrant articles real quick. Did you put money in there for, a warrant article, or is there money in the budget to pay for an engineer once RFQs are done for? Like we talked about, what was it, 2 weeks ago? We talked about the town's probably gonna spend $300,000 on engineering that they're
We
not
have the
gonna-
bridge fund in there, and this money went into the bridge fund. So we have some money that the selectmen can get their hands on, if you wanna put it that way,
Yep.
to allow for these things here that are a necessity. My biggest concern right now is paying for the bills when they come in before we get the money back in reimbursement. Jeff?
Francis, in the past, when we've had these federal monies that we've waited on, during the emergency operations of all this, we took those monies out of our general fund, you're shelved 14% of, and that was all blessing through DRA, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's when we,
If you have a flood,
had the FEMA stuff.
and you're waiting
Yes.
for the FEMA fund to come back in,
You
you
had that
take that money from
money out
your
of that.
general fund.
Yes.
Back in October, thereabouts, when we set the tax rate, we get a figure from the Department of Revenue Administration that tells us how good our finances are. It's called a surplus fund balance. It's not cash on hand, but if you have a high surplus fund balance, you have a far greater likelihood of having a higher cash on hand. I'm going to tell you right now, we have a high surplus fund balance. For those bridges, we probably can dip into the general fund, and then when we get the money back, still have money to pay the schools and so on that we have for other additional bills. It's going to require planning.
One last thing, on the warrant article 4, it says, to raise and appropriate the sum of $316,300, for the operating budget. I think it's important for the town to know that $62,000 of that comes from a New Hampshire highway block grant that we get every year. So $62,000 of that, and if I'm allowed to speak at the town meeting in March, I will want people to know that we do get money from the state every year as a block grant. That's $62,000. So
And that would be
I
an
mean,
offset.
basically that would be an offset. So the town would be general taxation would be around $270,000.
So you
In
would
all
be getting
fairness,
an offsetting
if
revenue.
you look at last year's town report, you will find that, I'm just talking round numbers, that the amount that was authorized to spend was about $1.1 million. The actual amount that had to be raised by taxation was about $800,000. That's $300,000 that was, that came about as a result of numerous resources that I'm not even prepared to tell you about. There's dog tax, miscellaneous fees. Donna can probably talk more about what I'm talking about in some respect. These are all coming through the town clerk tax collector's office.
Yeah.
Yep. Am I right?
Yeah.
I wanna say it was 300,000 last year, and you can't depend on that. You can't even depend on the 65,000 for the block grant, because it goes up and down in such a manner that,
It is given in July though, so we do know how much we're getting by town meeting.
the selectmen have to report to the Department of Revenue Administration approximately 4 times between the March meeting and the end of October. And the portion of those meetings include, what's your warrant articles that passed at the town meeting? How much revenue are you expecting for this, and this? And the DRA will come and give us the devil if we aren't doing a pretty good job of spending our money. We've never been reprimanded, so I know that's good. But they do ask questions, they keep us.
Francis?
Yes.
Will there be a revenue sheet available at the meeting?
That's in the treasurer's report.
The treasurer?
It would be similar to the one that's in here, and I don't know what treasurer's report, page.
I just know when we're doing the budget at the high school, we always have a
Page
revenue
02.
sheet to look at to see what's coming in and what percentages come in that's supposed to and all
In,
that.
in this book, there is a treasurer's report that shows you all the different revenue sources. They don't give it a very good detail. If they did, they'd fill a book all by themselves.
But there's nothing to go with this budget for expected revenues coming in towards this coming year.
I expect it based on last year. Right now, I'm going to have to redo it with the $90,000 coming out of the capital reserve. But I was expecting about $1.72 increase in the tax rate, and with $90,000 coming out of the capital reserve, that should be reduced at 90 cents. So instead of $1.72, it may be more like 80.
What I'm asking is like when we're talking about a block grant coming in from the highway department, you know, what other things come in? Like the schools get an educational block grant, there's different things that come in, so what's coming into the town against this budget?
All right, Donna, help me out. What do we get for revenues besides just taxes?
Motor vehicle. Motor vehicles, I think.
We'll get about $48,000 from the rooms and meals tax. We get that in, but I don't know if the DRA looks at our budget first and then they have to like look at the tax rate and all that to determine what our revenues are going to be.
We have a whole bunch of forms we have to send out to the DRA as soon as the March meeting is over. All right, are we ready to close the hearing?
You are?
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Okay. There we go.
You make the motion, I'll second.
The hearing.
Second, yes, I second that.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
So the hearing is now closed, and we're back into a regular meeting. And at this time, we should decide as a final presentation to the town what modifications in these warrant articles we are going to make. And I only heard one.
$43 to $42.
After the meeting.
Correct me if I'm wrong. On the Red Oak Hill paving, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $135,421 for the purpose of paving Red Oak Hill from its intersection with East Side Road to the Wentworth Warren Town line, and also pave approximately 400 feet in front of King's Lumber, of which $135,421 is to come from road paving capital reserve fund, and nothing from general taxation. That will reduce the figure that I have, $1.72, by about 90 cents. so it'll be 86. That warrant article is number 25. Was there anything else that we did give, or did say we would do?
Francis.
Yes.
The gentleman next to me did bring up a good point about making a change to the third full-time employee. Is that something that we can do now, or should we be waiting to
I think
the
you
meeting?
should be doing that at the
Because
town
it's a
meeting.
petition.
Here's the problem with this.
Oh, okay.
If you raise it in a warrant article, other than the warrant article that already exists, then you're raising the same money twice.
But I'm sorry. Yeah, I think we went over that. The specific change would have been just to notate the additional appropriation of about $8,000 that goes into that other warrant article.
There should be enough in there. Funds,
Yeah,
all the
I think just the
8,000 for insurance.
explanation of it.
It's strictly the explanation that the gentleman next to me was asking about.
cannot change that warrant article.
Yeah.
Not be written.
We cannot change that warrant article.
Okay. All right.
That's the problem.
It's already included in
Yeah,
the.
that's understood, Leonard. No, I completely understand. It's just the explanation in the warrant article for the additional employee, indicating that 8,000 or whatever so dollars were going to be appropriated in this other warrant article to.
Can you put that as a note
Yeah.
and not included in part of the warrant article?
The warrant article is supposed to be presented as the
Given as
people
a
presented
verbal
to us.
A verbal explanation
Or the
should be
selectmen
fine.
can bring it up. We can bring it up.
Verbal
We can-
explanation.
Okay, we can just bring that up at
Yep.
the town meeting.
Yep.
That's fine.
One other little problem I gotta address. Linda is going to have tomorrow morning, paychecks and invoices for us to sign. We need to get together tomorrow sometime. Yep, I
So not
know.
meeting tomorrow night?
Well, everybody has to come
Donna,
back for tomorrow.
Linda, could you bring those checks with you when you come up at 1 o'clock? Could you be here at 1 o'clock?
And be here at 8 o'clock.
I need them
You need 8 to noon and then at 1 o'clock.
first thing in the morning. 8:30.
Just wanna get these checks, otherwise they don't get paid. Jeff,
Just out of the regular meeting, so I'd like to bring to your attention the dilemmas that we had over the weekend on a snow machine accident. A lot of resources were utilized, not only from this town, but a couple others that came in to assist us. The end result was a success. We were able to airlift the patient, and that patient is now home. My question is, and one of the problems that we found in this, and I'm going to be doing critiques within departments, and I'm also going to be doing a critique with the Baker River Snow Machine Club, because we've discussed it with them. One of the big problems that we found is they have no way, the Baker River Club has no way to communicate with your emergency services. Lakes Region Mutual Aid channels are not allowed to be allocated to anything other than a municipality fire station, fire department. Same with the Grafton County Sheriffs and the Police Chief's Dispatching Center. But we do have an avenue, which is through your highway department frequency, which is a town-owned frequency that we received the FCC license on a number of years back. I've recently talked with Paul about that to see if it would be an issue for him if they outfitted their own equipment, purchasing their own radios, if the town would allow allocation for that frequency. Then emergency services can be dealing with the snowcats and the other equipment that they have during these emergencies. Because we have no real way, this town has no real way to get out there on the back trails other than them. And we did have Hebron come in with their all-terrain vehicle. But
do we have the capability under existing circumstances?
as far as money-wise,
They don't have the comms to do the mission.
Go ahead, what?
They don't have the comms to run the mission. They need the communication. He's got the communication. That's what they need to
right,
do.
and the highway department's communications frequency would have to be allocated
Right.
by the select board to allow the Baker River Club to have that in their radio.
Do you see that as a problem?
I do not.
I don't either, I don't.
But it has to come from the board.
I would just point out, as long as they understand they can't use it for communication
Correct.
between groomer to groomer,
So we would have to come up with a memorandum of
that's the only
understanding
thing that would worry me.
to state exactly that.
You gotta use communications for communications,
Right.
proper change.
Ask a question. Go ahead. Chief, do you have a proposed, letter to send? I mean, I think it's a very important idea, yeah.
I do not at this point, but it is something that I can work with and work towards.
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate to take a motion right now.
I certainly would, entertain a motion to,
I move that we, the town, immediately put into a process to put into place the communications so that the fire department, highway department, police department, and snowmobile clubs can communicate to meet the public safety.
And there should be a memorandum of understanding on the use of it. Because if you abuse it, that, people start chatting on the phone.
Right.
You don't-
I'll second that.
Linda, did you,
Exactly.
write my motion down?
Immediately put into place a way to
A process,
between
a process to
Yeah, memorandum.
have communications among
In place.
the snowmobile club, I'll slow down, among the snowmobile club, emergency services, which would include the fire department and the police department, the highway department, and that there be a memorandum in place so that this communication is not abused.
And the memorandum establishes a standard operation procedure, SOPs.
are you gonna have to invent these from scratch, or do you
Yeah.
have some in mind?
I do have some boilerplate stuff that can be used, but
What's important is that we immediately proceed to put this operation and to get this communication system in place with the standard operating procedure as Dr. Scheller has.
I move the question.
I'm in favor of it, but I'd rather see it in writing first. I like the idea.
We're gonna get started. What's your?
That's to proceed with the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief has a question.
Chief, I think we're in agreement that what we're looking for is just permission from the board for this outside entity to use the communications as available tools. I think it's getting a little bit too complicated in all the wording right now.
Yeah,
We're just looking for permission by the board to allow Baker River Snowmobile Club.
I don't know why we wouldn't.
but you really do need some type of memorandum of understanding.
Yes, with an MOU and.
So I can work on that and bring that to the board at a
Is
later
that gonna
date?
put a lot of work on you?
No.
How
No.
much money that we have not addressed is it gonna cost the town?
There would be no dollar fee to the town of Wentworth. Just labor.
Call the question.
I had, okay.
Go ahead, no, I'll
Yep,
withdraw
I
that.
was going off on another topic, never mind, we gotta finish one first.
Okay, so Francis, you made the motion. I made the motion, excuse me, yes, thank you very much.
I seconded it.
Seconded by Francis.
You vote?
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes, so.
Thank you.
We can get started on this, and,
Yeah, I'll make motion
if you
on
need
that.
to address the board again for anything as far as, feel free to do so.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief, for bringing it up.
Donna made a request,
No, motion. Ixnay on requesting.
you don't want,
No.
I can't make it on Sunday.
I don't know how you changed your mind.
She wants to cut his head off.
All right. Is there anything else to come before this meeting tonight? We did a pretty good job with a hearing and a few decisions making. I repeat again, we have to meet tomorrow, shortly after 1, so we can sign those checks.
That's the only time.
Shortly after 1?
Yes, that's the only meeting we have tomorrow is shortly after 1.
Is there a time I don't recognize?
No, I just wanna make sure I get this right. I'll be there.
Okay, we have to serve as, what's the word, proctors for the election.
God.
2 of them at a time or a designee.
Anybody wanna be a designee of the selectmen to sit at the polls all day tomorrow, starting at 8 o'clock and going till,
The
what,
ballot
7?
clerk anyway.
You don't have to be there for the whole time, but, 6 or 7 hours at a time.
Does it feed you?
I'm there anyway. The ballot clerk.
Oh, but you can't be a designee.
Why not?
Because she's a ballot.
Until like
Is
after
there
7, right?
wording to that effect?
No, it's
I said I'd be there from 8 to 1.
I can be there
no, I'm,
a part of the day, that's fine with me.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we designate Beth Folsom as one of our designees tomorrow to help out at the polls.
Ron, would you like to help?
I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow
Okay.
in the
I'll
morning.
second that.
so-
Kevin?
Yeah, I second that.
Thank you, Beth. I vote yes.
I vote yes. So we gotta,
Work out with you.
we gotta itemize the time. Hey, no talking, please, I can't shout over you. We need to organize the time so these people will be here. I said I would be, I can change my mind, but I can be here from 8 to 1. That means I'll be here shortly after 1 to sign the check when you get them up here.
So am I not on now?
We'll listen to the possibilities. What time do you wanna be here? 1 to 5?
1 to 5, yeah, the less time.
I'll come in, I'll be here by 8.
8 to 1?
Is that when you open?
That's up to
Open at 8.
Steve Welch, but yeah, I think you'll have to probably, because it's not the opening.
I'll make sure I'm here at 8 and when
Let's do
someone
from 8
shows
to
up
1.
to relieve me, I'll go home.
You're after 1.
1 o'clock to 5.
Can you be after 1?
We'll do sign checks
Yes.
after that.
And you're gonna have to be up until about 8 o'clock.
It's okay after
Okay. We'll have to perhaps change our mind later and call on you, but right now you're free.
So
How's
I
that sound?
just put it-
Yes.
I could come in the afternoon, like from 1 to close,
Buffett.
Subject to change without.
if somebody doesn't wanna do it.
We need 2 people at a time. We're supposed to have 2 people
Okay.
at a time. So if Beth and you would come up afterwards, we can coordinate times better.
All right.
I'm
So we're
gonna
not
say
holding
1 to,
anybody up.
I'm gonna say about 2 to 8,
We'll put an
because we're gonna have to be here after 1 o'clock to sign the check. So 2 to 8? 2 to 8?
No, morning, 8 in the morning.
Oh, you're in the afternoon. You're in the afternoon. 2 to 8?
I'll be here.
8 till
Morning.
Beth.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm assuming the doors are gonna be open before 8 o'clock.
Yes. Deb Zimba will be here at 7:30.
If there is no more business to conduct, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the meeting be adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
You never know, we shut that up too early. Absolutely.